Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Glass Seats. This is Viddy.
And my name is Mrinal. And in this episode, we are visiting Vancouver.
Oh, yes.
If you haven't heard this story already, it's been making rounds. Arshdeep Bains scores his first NHL goal.
Yeah.
Why is it important on this particular player? So this is the fourth Punjabi player to play in the NHL after Manny Malhotra, Jujhar Khaira, and Robin Bawa. So fourth Punjabi player. He grew up in Vancouver. Made it to his hometown team. Took a long way to get there. You know, he wasn't drafted in the WHL draft, but, you know, fought his way onto a team in Red Deer and then eventually signed a contract with the Canucks. He scores his first goal on Hockey Night in Canada, and on the night they're broadcasting in Punjabi.
Yeah.
It was a cool moment.
Yeah, very much a, what's called when the stars align moment, something like that. He did start initially with the Abbotsford Canucks, right? Or
yeah, he had to work his way up.
Team,
WHL, AHL, NHL.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that goes to show, like, just if you want something bad enough, you know, you can make it happen, truly. Like, it's one of those, I know a lot of us, like to shit on, like, the whole, like, great American dream. It's not a thing, or I guess great Canadian dream, if that's a thing. Like, how it's just not a thing anymore. I think times have changed, but, like, it's just cool to see a story like this kind of come to fruition, right? And especially for this kid and playing for his hometown team, or like just playing a team he rooted for growing up. Incredible.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit. I mean, if you haven't noticed, we're of Indian descent.
Yes.
So does this mean more to you to see an Indian player do this?
I think so. And I think it's, let's call a spade. There's so much stigma to, like, be whether it's a doctor, engineer, lawyer. It's almost like there's a trifecta of, like, so to be an athlete, that to a hockey player is just it's unheard of, right? In our culture, there's not, even when Jeremy Linsanity was a thing, part of the reason it was a thing is because an Asian dude was tearing up the NBA. Yeah. Especially in the Mecca and for the New York Knicks, right? So it was this whole big deal because he was Asian. You could argue it's the same way, especially in a mostly, like, Caucasian dominated sport. It's not normal to see, like, an immigrant kid, like,
like I said, this is the fourth all time.
Yeah. And that's just because, like, one, there's not that many, you know, Indian kids enrolled in sports or hockey. And two, it's expensive. These, like, immigrant, like, a lot of a very common immigrant story is that if they're not coming over from a company that purchased them overseas, their degree is useless in their new Western country. So they're basically doing any job possible to make ends meet, and any income that's left over goes to the kids' hockey program or whatever.
If you guys don't know about this, typically Indian colleges have a 3-year degree, but the U.S. system doesn't recognize it unless it's a 4-year degree.
Right. So it's just a lot of these degrees that people or parents have worked so hard for now become useless for lack of a better word. And so it's just hard to even get kids into programs like hockey, because we all know how expensive the sport is, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, just getting ice time is tough.
Yeah. And that's not even counting, like, the $200 sticks and the jerseys, the skates, pads,
lessons,
the pants, like literally everything.
Yeah. I was listening to another podcast and they were talking about how there's no other sport where standing on the surface that you play on is a skill.
Right.
And that's true for hockey.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, the amount of...
I guess the closest I could imagine is, like, polo, where you have to know how to ride a horse.
Right. I guess so. But, like, there's such a high threshold. I mean, the only sport I can think of that immediately comes to mind that's significantly more expensive than hockey is, like, Formula One, where you literally pretty much have to be a millionaire to kind of even get your feet wet into that, or just insanely talented.
I mean, even then, like, a average person can understand the concept of driving.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I guess.
And try to explain someone what skating is like to who has never been on ice.
Yeah, it's a motion that most of the population is not familiar with, right? And we say all this to go back to the point that a lot of Indian kids are not enrolled in these programs just because hockey itself is just such an alien sport. And to see, like, you know, a story like this, I mean, we're highlighting it because we're hoping that it passes on to someone who was inspired by it. Yeah. Right. Hopefully this, like, kind of turns a tide to show that, like, hey, it's not just, you know, you don't have to be rich to play hockey. If you have heart, hopefully you can make your way up to that professional level.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I just remember being a kid and watching Manny Malhotra when he
Yes.
came to the Sharks. He
Also
played for
from the
Sharks.
Canucks, and came from the Canucks to the Sharks. I think.
Yeah.
So,
And what that meant to me.
Yeah.
Right? You know, like he didn't last.
he was
long,
not a star player,
but I still remember his name.
Yes,
And I
yeah.
didn't number. He was number 37 on the Sharks.
Mhm.
Like it made an impact,
Yeah.
right? So now, whatever kids are watching hockey, whatever age I was back then, you know, like early high school,
Right.
seeing Arshdeep Bains do something like this, that's incredible,
Yeah.
right? And it has a lasting effect. I'm talking about it here on a show 10 years later,
Yeah.
probably more than 10 years.
Yeah.
But yeah,
We recently sent off some blanks to get stitched, and I was so close to getting a Minnesota Wild Jushikara jersey
really?
just because it was like, it's cool, man. Like
Yeah.
just to see like someone that looks like you play the game when everyone else doesn't look like you. That's awesome, and I think
mean,
that is great for the sport.
it matters, right?
It does matter.
Yeah.
Like we can sit here and be like, "Oh, race doesn't matter. It's about your skill," which is true in theory.
Yeah.
But like, come on, man! Like when you see yourself like being represented in a space where you're underrepresented, it's like it's no different than seeing like women in women in sports, women in engineering, like
STEM,
literally any program. Jessica Campbell. That is a whole story in of itself, and is being covered rightfully so. And you know, if we're gonna sit here and talk about like underrepresentation, I feel like we had to talk about Arshdeep Bains here.
Yeah. I mean, it was a cool moment, especially hearing the broadcast in Punjabi.
Yeah,
That didn't exist when we were growing up, right?
No.
So
when did that start? Because the first time I remember it is like Bonino
Yeah.
in the 2016 finals.
that's the first time I remember it too.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly when it started.
Yeah.
And to be fair, it's not available here in the States. It's only in Canada.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's a Sportsnet thing.
Oh man, I was like, how do I get access to that?
No, it's for specifically for Hockey Night in Canada.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
wow. That's when we first started watching the sport, that was not a thing, not even close to a thing.
What, Hockey Night in Canada?
No, Hockey Night in Canada
Yeah.
was, but having the Punjabi commentators, not a thing.
And
So-
you know, where we grew up in California, this does exist, just not in Punjabi, right? It's mostly for Hispanic and Spanish speaking people.
Yeah,
The Sharks do a lot. I know that. I'm pretty sure the Ducks do quite a bit too.
yeah,
But that's where California, because that's the group here, right? But in Vancouver, it's a lot of Punjabi people, especially, and in Toronto, a lot of these Canadian cities have a big Punjabi population.
yeah. I would be interested to because the only stadiums I've ever actually seen games at are Anaheim, LA, San Jose, and Denver. So obviously amongst those, the Bay Area, San Jose has had probably the most diverse demographic, I would say. But I
mean, LA is pretty diverse.
LA is diverse too,
Yeah.
but I would say like in terms of like just all sorts of like just various faces, I was like, I wonder what a Canucks game looks like or a Toronto game looks like, right? Because I don't know. I remember vividly one time seeing a guy wearing seeing a guy wearing a turban like at a Flames game, but he was like at the seats, like behind the coach, you know, so you could like.
So he was on the camera.
Yeah, he was on the camera, and I was just I was like 8 years old, just so mind blown by that, and I was like, that is awesome,
and this is
is awesome, and it's a fan.
It's not even a player.
It's not even a player.
Some guy in the stands.
Yeah, and I was like, that is like literally the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I remember it all these years later, and you know, like that's what I mean by like having that representation in the sport. It's important.
Yeah,
it is important. So,
all right.
Congrats to Arshdeep Bains. It's a hell of a story, and hopefully inspires more kids later on.
Yeah, and I want to see more goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let us know your thoughts on Arshdeep Bains in the comments below. If you like this episode, drop a like on it. Hit subscribe if you want more glass seats. We have multiple episodes out every week. See you in the next one. Bye.